Okay, you guys, welcome to this episode of the Outrun Show. I'm Travis.
I'm Jesse.
Justin.
And today we are talking a little bit about Cyberpunk. The new video game is out. We've been playing it. We can talk a little bit about those goodies, our brand, and sort of our vision and relationship to the future and our style of doing things. We talk a little bit about the idea of a pit in our new gym and the new gym aesthetic as well. Jesse tells a death-defying tale of a date gone wrong and a story of love and survival in the Colorado Rockies. And then we talk some inspiration. We feel like we need some energy right now in these times about our approach to the struggles of building a new gym in COVID and sort of how our history and how having strong partnerships affects that. So all that and more on this inspiring and very fun tales on this episode.
Aesthetically pleasing episode.
Always aesthetically pleasing. On the Outrun Show.
Or supine. That's supine.
Soupy plank?
I like the front planks too. The supine plank. It's the winner right there. 8 hours every day.
Dude, so my upper back had this pain where it was the same as my lower back, where I can't move, I can't turn, sitting up really hurts. And I've never had it up there, and I didn't have any injuries. I wasn't lifting heavy. I wasn't doing any big jumps.
You're talking about like thoracic spine?
Yeah, it's like right mid back, and I talked to Olaf. He's like, yeah, I have that. And he's like, I think sometimes my theory is that I sleep in a bed that's too soft and I sink into it like that. And now I don't want to sleep on my back anymore because it lasted like a week. Where
I don't believe Olaf sleeps in a bed.
No, he was like so. He's like, so the only way I got out of that is I sleep on the floor, and that's how I got out of my lower back pain. Was I had to sleep on the floor and just like literally wake up 10 times a night, switch positions, sleep for 30 minutes, and roll over.
So I found that that type of pain both comes from and for me has been aided in doing row variations. So if you're doing, you can do the bro science bent over row, or you can do the like the front lever row on the bar.
All the ponds and lakes are frozen though.
Yes, you could
Row nice.
Yeah, I don't think cruise ships are running either, so you could row on a ship and try and do it that way. Yeah, so the rowing will really help on that.
Yeah, I can see that.
Especially if you spend a lot of time in this position playing the Cyberpunks.
Yes.
Is that how you play?
I bet.
I switched. I can't play in the same position anymore. So it's like this, or it's like this now.
Lean back.
Because I got a big enough TV. I've never been able to lean back on my couch and play video games before. Because
the TV is always too far. Yeah.
Having a big TV, it's like, kind of nice, but I only last so long until like stuff starts happening, and then I'm like,
and you got to get serious.
Yeah.
I just feel like I have too much self-respect to sit in a couch like that.
There's one guy I saw, a really chunky guy, and he was able to rest his hands on his gut.
Oh yeah, on that controller.
That sounds pretty.
It sounds so nice, man. Because half the battle, TV always shows TV always shows people playing video games like this, and you just have to have your elbows on something.
You gotta have some sort of brace, yeah.
So,
I think kids playing video games like that.
Like this?
Like where they hold it in front of their face and there's
amateurs.
Yeah.
It's
First
like
timers.
Models paid to play video game players.
Yes, exactly.
But they're just doing this on the controller in the movie.
Yeah. We all know.
We can tell.
Yeah.
Can't fake that.
Someone doing code with their index fingers.
Yeah.
Cool, let me code this up. You're like, what? The screen just stuff just flying.
Yeah, that's pretty good.
That is good. So we've got the Cyberpunk is out.
Yes, finally. Long awaited. 8 years, although admittedly, when I first heard about it, it wasn't really on my radar 8 years ago.
Oh, really?
I heard about it and I was like, that looks cool, but then there were no release date. So I was like, all right.
Yeah, I don't think I heard about it
So
until
8
3
years
years
ago would have been almost as old as Outrun.
It would have
The original.
the OG,
seed.
the original seed, or the original journey, the first step,
The first Loveland.
the first location
Yeah.
back
Which
in
is
the
another good parallel.
back
for
in the
Cyberpunk
Apex
for us.
days. Yeah, there is a good parallel. And
That's a good point.
to be honest, that was also the year that we did our first Retro Future T-shirt design, of which there was only one shirt.
Oh, you did
made.
your little Miami Vice tank.
Mhm.
Yeah, I do remember
Yeah.
that.
Yep. Because I knew, I was like, this feels so cool. I want to do this, and I did. I still have that tank. I still wear it sometimes.
Yeah, I remember that.
But I probably need to take a picture of it just to show like foot was in the door back then.
Yeah.
I do remember that tee because I remember seeing that and I was like, hey, that's a cool tee. And then Travis was like, yeah, I made it for myself.
Yeah. Yeah, it was Apex Loveland, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. It was the Loveland location, and I remember actually making it oversized. So I bought like a double XL tank, and I did it on like Cafe Press, and just did one, and I didn't do more because I didn't want permission.
Yeah.
I didn't want it to be a whole thing about like
Yeah.
I just want to do my design. I think sometimes we come up with really good designs like that here. Like someone will just make one, and everybody's like, actually, that's really cool. But if there was dialogue around it, it would just be
Yes.
torn apart.
Yeah. Yeah, that's what I like about the design is that there's room for quite a variety of design and merchandise options.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like, the Super Future makes sense. I feel like that's one of Jesse's new shirts that's coming out, right? Where it's more cyber future.
Yeah,
I feel like.
cyber
And then
future
there's
is,
like, then there's Cyberpunk and there's Blade
Tech
Runner,
noir.
which
Mhm.
feel more
Noir.
retro future to me. Like if your future has buttons in it, it's not a real future. It's not the realistic future. We already have cars that have one button in them. So
So you don't like any analog? But
no, I love buttons.
Justin loved buttons. He's a
I was
I
like-
was mad when iPhone took away the home button. So
I feel like cyber hipster would definitely have a lot of buttons. It'd be like click,
Yeah.
click, click, click,
I would
boom,
love
boom,
it.
boom, boom, boom.
That's
Like
why-
you do at
well,
the
that's why
inside.
Justin picked the Nomad
yeah,
like backstory in Cyberpunk.
Oh,
I picked the
dirty nerd. Because you want like an El Camino with the Back to the
Oh
Future
yes,
box
I
in it
do
or
love
something.
the
Yeah.
like
With a turret.
all-terrain future vehicles. I think they're cool.
That's pretty cool.
The like
Yeah.
desert folk.
But I like buttons. So like retro future, like Blade Runner was like that too. Where
Mhm.
this was like, it's like things were still mechanical
Mhm.
and they weren't total. I feel like when you watch the new like dystopian movies like Hunger Games or Maze Runner or whatever, they have the like super dystopian future setting, utopia future
Mhm.
maybe.
I feel like it's
everything's like HUD.
It's so clean,
Yeah.
but I do
yeah, but
like
then in
Blade
3
Runner's
years
style.
it looks like trash because it's representative of the time. That's why
Yeah.
it's like this is why Jurassic Park still works.
Yep.
Real dinosaurs.
Real
They were real.
dinosaurs. They built those machines.
They built those
Yeah,
dinosaurs,
it's pretty
and that makes
wild.
it cool. This is why I still like the Ninja Turtles 1 and 2, 3, but 1 and 2, like it just feels gritty and real. Like people had the
Like,
costumes on.
it was
Yeah.
a real person in there. They didn't like do stop motion or any sort of like CGI capture.
Right, so stuff just becomes kind of dated as soon as like our expectation around the CGI changes and whatnot. And that's why I think retro future is such a lasting genre because it's like what people could do with the time to explain what they thought the future was going to be like. And it's that expectation and sort of like kind of the guessing game of did they get any of it right?
Yeah.
It's kind of fun. I mean, you go back and you watch I think that good examples of this would be like Star Trek Next Generation. They did the panels, like touching panels, right? Everything's there's none of those mechanics that you're looking for. But the OG Star Trek, like
Yeah.
that's a lot of like beep, 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 beep. And then if you look at the new ones, they did a good job of making those still look fun, but had to take a contemporary approach because the new ones are still very analog.
Yeah, it's kind of weird because SpaceX did. We all saw the cockpit from SpaceX, right?
Yeah,
And it was. Yeah, I thought they were gonna have some buttons, but I didn't see.
It's like a
any
Tesla.
buttons. That was like
I think they're intentionally
4
doing
screens
that.
on there. That was
It's like a
pretty cool.
Tesla. Like my
Yeah.
Tesla has the screen, and that's it.
I mean, if you
Oh, there's
Yeah.
some dials on the
on
wheel.
the wheel,
Yeah.
yeah. I mean, if you think about it though, it's far more efficient to have a
Oh, yeah.
touch screen display because it can change, right?
Yeah.
So buttons are always going to be buttons, and if you're a real crafty engineer, you could maybe make the button that switches purposes when you're in a different mode, right? Like in sports mode, this button now does something else. But that's typically bad UI to like change up historically what a button used to be, and now it's something else is like pretty bad UI.
Yeah, there's a language in there for sure.
So, but a touchscreen, right? Like once you go into sports mode, the whole display can change, and all the buttons can like be new things now, and they look differently and they have new shapes. And so you have one display, and it can be thousands of buttons as opposed to one display, and you have a 10x4 grid of buttons, right?
Yeah.
I think you'll see airplanes until I think airplane industry, I'm sure, has tons and tons of restrictions on like when they can change things, but they have. I mean, the cockpit's just like. There's so many buttons, right? It's like you're in space and like all the stars are staring at you and blinking at you, and those are all buttons. And I'm like, that seems incredibly inefficient.
Yeah.
When you could have like a display that then just shifts when you need it to, but if that display dies, then everybody dies. Mm-hmm. So I can see why they're like.
So I've had my display die in my Tesla before.
Oh really?
Oh yeah.
So you have to take it out?
No, it's just kind of like it's software, right?
Yep.
So there's like there must be several layers of redundancy as far as like the vehicle operating system goes, because like sometimes through heat or cold or just not updating my software, like stuff will just go bump, and then and then the turn signal noise like won't even make a noise. And so but everything operates normally, and you still can operate, and the turn signal turns on, it's really turning on, you just don't have the audible feedback and stuff, so it gets a little weird. But it seems like there's like the operating system that handles the vehicle's mechanics, and then there's the operating system that handles the UI experience when you're doing it. So playing that might be a scenario where it's like, oh, you guys, the freaking screen's out, and then the plane's just flying itself or something. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean the majority of the flight is autopilot, right? Like once they hit altitude, it's just like, and then the plane does it for 8 hours, and then I think landings they. Like by law have to have like
you're with it, but I don't know if you're actually on the landings. I don't know if you're actually doing that much. I mean, you have to have hands on. I don't know. We're not pilot. We have
not a pilot.
We'll making stuff up at this point.
My car won't stop me from drifting out of lane unless it feels my hands on the wheel.
Oh really?
So I think that's a rule. Yeah.
Like it does a little steering wheel
vibration
thing?
if I let go of the wheel and I enter a curve, it'll notify me, but it won't fix it for me.
Really?
But if I have my hands on there, it'll adjust it for
That's
me.
the time you need
it. I know. This is a classic.
I don't quite get it. I think it's a law.
No.
Right? The only reason.
Well, no, I'm certain there is some liability that they have because they're like, because otherwise Justin will be over here like, hey, check this out.
The same
so let his hands off. Yep. And then it'll be like, oh, correct. And then Justin's like, see, I do have auto drive features. And then he like crashes. And then Volvo's like, you idiot, that's supposed to keep you alive.
This is just what happens when traditional companies and automakers try to like do something that someone else is doing, in my opinion. It's like they always just fall short, right? It's like I've had this experience.
Yeah, they don't want to break tradition, and they see someone who has done it, and they're like, we'll get right up next to that,
and then they stop just right beforehand.
It's kind of clever, though. I mean, they're hedging their bet, right? Because if they have some people in R&D making the software for that, and then if it does end up being the thing that everybody wants, they're like, well, we at least have a couple years worth of R&D already in that project, so we can pivot. It's pretty smart, but yeah, it ends up just being
I think it's some old product guy who's like, you can't do that because then. If you're doing that, then the consumer will expect that it will always be there. Whereas Tesla's just like, you guys want to give this a shot?
Yeah.
Because mine does it sometimes. Like if I take my hands off the wheel and you can watch it, it will autocorrect, especially when lines on the road.
Did you download that auto drive update?
I have it.
It was like what, like $5,000 for that?
No, I didn't pay for that. They have some safety features that do come standard. Yeah, so like if I take my hand off the wheel, it'll go like beep 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 beep, and then the screen will flash blue, and then it'll be like take control, and if you don't, it slows the vehicle down to a stop, and then turns the hazard lights on. That makes sense.
Mm-hmm. That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah,
they're like, this dude just passed out.
Yeah.
because he was drifting them G's, couldn't handle it.
Yeah, I think it's the sleeping. I think probably what helped you the most is sleeping.
Yeah.
Like on the interstate or whatever. And when it doesn't matter, like even if you have your hands on the wheel and you start to drift, it'll pull it back, even against your sort of, like it'll tug, like yours, correct?
Huh. Yeah,
and
so
then,
yours is completely pointless.
Yeah. Well, it's nice if you're just
not paying attention.
Yeah, you're looking over your shoulder, and then the road like curves a little bit, and it'll just be like, it'll just nudge
and
you.
Refocus your attention.
And then in Tesla, you have 3 sensitivity settings that can be either really strict on you or not. And I had my sensitivity settings turned up because I thought I wanted the most safety. But actually, it's super annoying because I'll be driving and I'll be looking and I'll just move a little bit towards the line. I'll be like, and I'll be like, oh, give me. If you don't drive like perfectly right down the center, it just gets on you.
Yeah.
So I turned the sensitivity down quite a bit, which I think helps the response.
My scooter has no auto drive features, guys. And when I was pulling out of my neighborhood,
pure analog,
and my back end of my tire just.
Oh yeah.
Actually, do kind of like that though. It's fun.
Mm-hmm.
I'm low to the ground, so it's not like anything happens if I fall.
Yeah, and it's not like
Hurts
super
my
heavy.
ego.
You can't just be like,
That's the great thing. Like last year when we had that big heavy snowstorm, I was working up front, and a couple of our longtime parents were in, and they had like a big old truck because it was a huge snowstorm, and they were like, "I don't see a car out there yet," and I was like, "Oh yeah, I got my scooter's parked on the other side of the building." They're like, "Do you just want to ride?" And I was like, "No, I'm super excited to ride in this weather. I like riding in like deep snow, because with the scooter weighing only like 250, 300 pounds, it's like when it starts to slide, I literally just pick the thing up and fix it, you know? So it's like if it pitches over, I literally just put my foot down and I just whoop. Whereas like a big bike, you're going down with it and you're gonna have to friggin' do the like back deadlift thing, which is super annoying, but the little scooter's nice.
Yeah,
it's fun.
I agree
for sure. So for the Outrun brand, like this was sort of the story, right? So we're just as interested in many ways as technology and the advancement of experience of technology in the brand, and sort of like understanding that is something we wanted to come out. So the logo does look pretty cyber, right?
Yeah.
There was some influence, but really we went with something that was a little more flexible. I think it's not as because the logo shape is so good, and because our designer James White, which you guys can check out, he's very famous designer, especially pretty much the leader and inventor of the aesthetic that we see presenting now, the Outrun aesthetic, and he was the first to sort of merge some of these more like contemporary future visions with sort of the retro style. It's a very, very tough thing to get done right and tastefully. And so I think that, just throwing like old video game imagery was not enough for us. We wanted it to be uniquely our own and have our own character in it. And the logo looked like something that you might want to climb or run and jump on, but then also be edgy in future, but have the old school flavor. And we nod at that with the gradients. That's something that we like to see.
Yeah, the chrome and the gradients for sure.
Do you like gradients? It's just not.
Gradients are so tough. They are
you can't
so
print them
tough to print
on anything but
man,
paper.
I did not realize that going into the design work. But it still looks. I mean, we made it so that it looked good just on a solid color. But the gradients, what we were really excited about, and especially even the one that we're looking at right here, that's behind us, the grain inside there is actually very hard for printers to handle.
Very hard. Yeah, because we do have some sort of like splatter, and that was sort of like that
I don't know if they can see that.
Yeah, they can't see it, but if you look really close to the logo, like some of the
they can see that.
The built out ones have a little bit of
Travis is touching a banner on the wall.
Actually,
the other thing that I didn't realize
watch it on YouTube, guys. Come
was
on.
that you can't stitch it,
You can't close the app.
and you also can't fill it with ink. So our bands can't have ink fill on gradient either. So it's just like
There's a lot of things. There's a lot of things in it.
But what it does really
just
do
gonna be displayed.
well is light, which is the main reason that I feel like we went with the neon. Can I spell that?
Yeah.
Okay, the neon design aesthetic that we're going vibe for. That right? The light that we'll have in the gym will be very gradient-esque, and we'll have several options where we have gradient or lights fading into another neon color. So that's where we got it right.
Yeah.
Which I demoed on, or we did a teaser for on Instagram, if you're wondering what I'm talking about.
Instagram and also the webpage has some teaser imagery of the inside. The
Yeah,
interior
on the season pass site, there's actually, you have a little screenshot of some of the mock-up, the 3D renders of the facility. If you kind of want to sneak peek on that, it's pretty cool. Which is a nice looking page, by the way.
Yeah,
I think I told you that, right?
Yeah, it's not bad, and I think that it just because we've started to build a solid foundation of like what our colors are, and we're going to know ourselves in the branding, it's becoming easier to make those selections. When you just kind of throw together everything you think looks good in the moment, and it doesn't have sort of an underlying like tone to it, that's really what we wanted to achieve with the brand stuff too, and we want the gym to feel that way too. We love other parkour gyms, but we just want it to feel like our own and our own expression of that. So when people can come in, they can get a different experience, and it's not go to a new town, go train at a new place, and every place sort of has that same.
And I feel like we've, as a like an industry, parkour has always, because it's been so young, and it's still very young.
True.
But because it's so young, we've always had to cater to what the third-party views in want, right? So rather than be able to design a facility that actually matches like what parkour people feel and love, have their aesthetic, we've always had to kind of have maybe 30% to 50% of your like facility designed to draw in other people, right? That's where they had like you saw a lot of early parkour gyms that had like big trampolines, which is not a thing we use in parkour, right? They had like Ninja Warrior obstacles like a warped wall or a salmon ladder, which are not things that parkour people really care about. And we had to do these things to draw in other people to like be catchy and right?
It was requested quite a bit.
Yeah,
it's died down quite a bit. I haven't gotten a request for a warped wall.
Well, that's what I mean. Is like now with
Travis,
design, you get them?
No, I haven't even gotten the request for the foam pit we tore out.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's another
true.
one. It's like right. It's like foam pit and stuff like that. And those are. I'm not saying those things like they should never exist. I just saying that like those are things that maybe should exist outside of a parkour gym because it's not inherently parkour. But I think now that parkour is grown and you have things like World Chase Tag that are on national television, global television actually, right? And you have parkour gyms that are actually robust and well-known brands and developed, they can do things that are uniquely theirs. And I think that's what we're trying to do with our facility, right? Is like we don't have a warped wall in there because 100% of what's going in that space is stuff that we want in that space. There's nothing that we're like, we gotta have that because that's just what, draws people in. We're like, no, we want to have that because that's what makes our facility better and more true to Outrun. And I think that's cool. Are you guys, how are we like 100% done on the floor layout? For those listening, I don't do any of the like 3D, the floor stuff because I complicate things when I do. So I let Justin and Travis.
There's a bar that's 20 feet high. Just is like, you think maybe it could be a little bit higher?
Wider.
I wanted it wider for a full swing because there's two bars and there's 6 foot in between and you can't get a full swing.
We're like, Jesse's gonna love these bars. They're 20 feet high. Can you just make it so I can do a cast up there? Yeah, I would love to cast on that bar.
But just a full swing? It doesn't have to be a cast?
Yikes.
Oh,
yeah, no. So for those of you listening and that don't know the division of labor that we have on this project, the floor layout is not it's not my project, and I try and avoid voicing my opinion on it because I just complicate it. But where are you guys at on that?
It's
you
like
figure
99% done. Yeah.
Oh, you're rounding up
99.
maybe. I'd say it's 90.
Oh, who's complicating it now?
Oh, well, we have one obstacle that's done.
Two.
We're done this week.
I haven't seen the latest cut, but I didn't see that corner back by the
you haven't seen that yet.
No, so you gotta show me afterwards.
Okay.
So some of the stuff that we can talk about
that you don't have the files.
About the attention is that the gym is intended to have a sort of future vision of parkour in obstacles, and we're trying to do our best to take away some of the more traditional shapes that we've seen, or at least rehash them in a way that's not easily recognizable, but fun to explore.
Yeah,
but also still teachable, right?
Absolutely.
That's for us. Is I think if we've joked about this too. Actually, we have an episode earlier where we were talking about like if you had a facility or a warehouse that was just for you, what would it look like, right? And that's, I think the aesthetic is going to look, in all three of our personal units, if you would look what it's going to look like in here, except the location and maybe heights and distances would be different because it's going to be for a higher level athlete. But I think it's super cool from what I've seen of the designs that you guys have managed to make a facility that looks so inviting and exciting as a longtime athlete like myself, who's like, I want to get in there, I want to play on this stuff, but also still highly utilized for teaching, right? It's not like if you take a kid outside to just a bar, so you're like, I can't teach him here because he's going to get hurt, he or she, right? But in the facility that you guys have made, it's very easy to scale things up or down for all levels of students while still being exciting and engaging to look at. And that's
the tough part about the UI of the gym, or the UX of the gym, is is that you can make a cool design or you can make a teachable design. Finding harmony for that is
very hard.
Tough. That's where it takes competence and experience and a vision and ability, and that's why if people don't know, we'll share more of who our partners in design are on this, but that's why we had Mikkel, our architect from Denmark, from Copenhagen specifically, who'd done work on other well-known facilities, BGI, right?
BGI, yeah.
BGI. So if you guys have seen that massive concrete thing in
mega structure,
indoor outdoor parkour gym.
Mm-hmm.
Only color is gray, and then their foam pit's like bright orange. It's very striking. Yeah, it's hard to miss once you run across it.
Yeah, and so having him work on this project has made everything like super tasteful. And then also with the retro future theme of the brand, we're trying to incorporate as much of sort of like brutalist shapes, like modern brutalist shapes. And brutalist architecture is something that has influenced parkour since its inception. The early founders were training on brutalist architecture, and a lot of the shapes, everything from like the manpower to apartments and stuff that we would see early on in parkour videos, is all brutalist architecture. There was these temps in France and the UK at public housing, which a lot of people who were just trying to train in these urban environments and be seen in their own way had to use features like this. So we're trying to bring that in because we realize that there is an indoor-outdoor sort of like relationship there without just straight up, and there's nothing wrong with this, but we didn't want to straight up just take parts of parkour history or parts on the outside and try and mirror them directly inside the gym. It's a bit more agnostic when it comes to that.
It's also just not true to like parkour nature, right? Like parkour is not about just like breaking is. It's like, that's biting, right? It's to be like, oh, I'm going to take this exact same thing and then copy the exact same moves on that, right? It's always about like taking something and adding your own or injecting your own piece. And I think that applies even to the architectural design of your facility. And we have some facilities on a global scale that have done that, have taken key the IMAX gap or
like
stuff like that,
the Oleg bar set,
and they've or they've replicated that in their gym, and I think that's super cool. But they've always backed it up to their own structures, right? So even though you may have the same look and the same feel and be able to do the same moves, there's always additional stuff surrounding it, so you can always add on to it in a unique.
What was Oleg's video that had the bar set in it?
Out of time.
Running out of time.
Is it out of time? Yeah, that's right. It was like a 9-minute video. It was like the first parkour video that was like that long, because back then there wasn't YouTube, so you couldn't stream it, you had to download it, so longer videos were a pain in the butt. And that was, I remember that one being like 9 minutes long and watching the whole thing and loving every minute of it.
Yeah, because Oleg's had a very stylistic approach to training.
Yep.
Yeah.
And so Tempest, and I think that's in the South Bay location, rest in peace, which is going.
Is it South Bay or is it Valley?
Or the Valley.
The Oleg one. The bar set.
Whichever one's closing, I'm pretty sure is in the.
Yeah.
It's South Bay is the one that's unfortunately closing doors.
So I think it might be in that one.
Yeah, I think it too.
But they redid that bar set out of that video, and it's just a great way to sort of transfer culture and stuff in. They've done a couple of those things where they've taken like the plane from like the videos that they've done in the past and put it in their gym. So those, I think that's done pretty tastefully. We always like to do things differently. We always think we can do things better and continuously improve like that. So our stuff always has to be, I feel like, unique. Like that's, if something looks, we have a natural sensitivity to I guess what you would call biting, right, from b-boy, where we're sort of taking too much from exactly something else and not sort of adding our own flavor to it. And I think that's just our own artistic opportunities that we don't want to miss out on, right?
Yeah, the new gym design is very abstract. It's going to be, quite the experience going in there and seeing how we move on it. And it was, it's the creativity from Mikkel is pretty impressive because at this point I've spent the last 5 years looking at gym inspiration, and it's pretty clear when we design it ourselves. We design things in grids as parkour athletes and designers. I feel like we might be seeing the world as a grid like that. I feel like a lot of our lines are linear and or horizontal, lateral. So when we think about things, when we design things in the way that we train them, it ends up being very like two-dimensional. And we see that in our own gym right now. Is you either go forward or you go sideways on it. And then when we added Mikkel in there, there's a lot of like shortcuts, I feel like, in there where we're going across the diagonal or something slices through the middle of something at a 45-degree angle. And there's just stuff like that where it feels simple once you say it. But like I feel like there's such a block when designing gyms, at least for me, because we've done designs. I don't know how many redesigns we've done. 6 or 7.
This will be the 4th location.
Yeah, but we've redesigned
several
each facility we've been in at least once or twice.
Yeah, this one's gone through at least three major changes. Yeah, complete changes. And that's also not typical too.
It hurts me to think about.
If you go in most gyms, it is a lot of pain. But we learned a lot. If you go in most gyms, they'll pretty much stay the same. I mean, most of the gyms that I've been in and out of over the last 8 years have stayed pretty similar. They're still, or at least...
Well, they'll add on, right? But like when we would do our stuff, and we'll definitely add on still, but we did entire remodels. Like we pulled pretty much everything out of the floor, moved it, scrapped it, built something new out of it, put it back together.
The big thing is we just keep a lot of floor space open in our concepts. Like you generally can walk from one side of the gym and around obstacles, and whereas a lot of parkour gyms, there is what we call them boats, right? The foam pit boat, where it's like a mega structure and things are built off of that. And to get from one side of the gym, you really have to go over it or you have to climb through it. But we've always kept a lot of floor space on our gym. That's what happens when you don't have bigger than 5K square feet. You generally need to
it
shave
also
the floor.
happens because I think when teaching new parkour athletes, you have to teach in straight or lateral patterns, right? And they need to be on the same level. So even though parkour operates in 3 dimensions, right? Like we want to be when you're an athlete or when you're out there actually training, you're moving in all sorts of directions that are not on the same plane. But when you're teaching, you have to teach on the same plane. So we've always wanted to maintain floor space so that it's easier to teach. Because if you have stuff super cluttered, not only is it hard to teach people basics and fundamentals, but also your hazards when they fall are a lot higher. If they're practicing vaults and then they trip and they fall down 3 stairs and then hit a drop, So it's a tough line to draw.
Oh yeah, that's what I was saying. It was just tough to design outside those boundaries. So it was very it's very eye opening to have Mikkel design some stuff for us.
Yeah,
because we have simple things that we need to feed. We need a slanted wall run. And then what he comes up with, because he doesn't want to create the wall runs that we have here, and so he comes up with his own interpretations of them, and it is they're going to be very exciting.
And we'll see if we can get contractors to actually build it.
Yes, it's like one challenge you complete and you get so excited for it, and then you're like, oh man, dang it. That's why we didn't design it that way in the past, because we didn't know how to build it.
Yeah, or you don't see it. It's so cool though. The shapes, like so many things have been reimagined. Just the slant wall.
Yeah.
There's 3 or 4 reimaginations of a slant wall in this new gym. And I just don't know yet, as I look at the designs that we have now, if there was really any particular element that still exists like you would see in another gym, or even at least in our current space. There's maybe some nods to it, but just some of the themes, the way that we've woven in the architectural interests, it is pretty cool. The other thing I'd say that's unique about this gym, or is uniquely difficult, is that the gym itself, how much opportunity there is condensed into smaller square footage. So when we looked at gyms early on in our experience, we found that there were gyms that had a lot of square footage, and unfortunately, that's hurting a lot of gyms right now. Having a lot of overhead, a lot of square footage, and in this day and age, occupancy is what you depend on in order to keep your business thriving. And we've always sort of been just crammed into a little bit smaller space than we would have liked, but it's forced us to do a lot with less square footage. So this new gym is pretty, boutique, bespoke parkour. It's not a massive floor plan.
No.
But the density is so interesting. Like, even so, we have a pit. It's not a traditional pit. So, it's still.
I think Justin spoiled it already.
You already spoiled that?
I don't think I did.
Yeah, I think he spoiled it a long time ago.
No, I just
almost
calling it a pit.
He almost did. He didn't.
So we have a pit. The pit is in ground. That's not too much of a spoiler alert. It is in ground, and we've just looked at sort of the corners and the uses. So instead of having this massive open pit, there are all sorts of adaptations around it to make it more useful. Like, one of the corners eats significantly into sort of the main foot traffic area of the center of the gym. So we had this cool idea to sort of build something over that corner, so that corner could still be usable on the inside of the pit if you needed it, but on the outside of the pit, there's shapes for tacks and redirection. And so the energy of the gym, when you look at it, seems a bit shielded and redirected, but you still get both the square footage for the pit itself and an opportunity to sort of train along. And it's very baked in, versus, and a lot of times we had to deal with the pits. They're highly invasive to the nature of the gym. They don't,
Can be,
they can be very invasive. There's and then we have to put this massive, chunk above ground typically in there. But there's so many layers.
Well, and I think the big thing too about a pit is that it's always an isolation tool, right? And since parkour is all about connecting things, and even though we teach a skill and then another skill, and then we have our students put them together and then eventually kind of improv their way through the facility, a pit can always only be, you can't integrate in a pit, right? You can maybe take two flips together and put them together and do a souk or something like that. But even then, a souk is a singular move, right? It's really just two different moves that you put together and now they're one. But so it's that's always been a tough balance of how do you insert this tool that is a really great teaching tool that doesn't fit the entire nature of the sport, right?
Yeah, and I think that this is, and Justin, you can talk a little bit about this, but this feels like a happy marriage of the tool and what we do. I don't feel like there's things we're putting in this design that we wouldn't choose to otherwise, right? In the past, it's felt like we've had to have some pits or something more even the air track in the beginning felt kind of gimmicky, right? But now we understand that we probably don't need one as big, but there could be some value to teaching on that. So talk about that. Do you feel
I feel, well, it's funny because we still have a boat this, but instead of the foam pit being the defining feature, it actually ended up being the employee break room. So it's there is in my opinion, that is a greater purpose for a boat, is to have an area for the employees to, call their own and make the gym a little bit of their home, and to do stuff, homework or
retreat
from. So that's the bigger part of it, and that's always my least favorite part. But now it serves pretty good purposes in my opinion. You got people teaching on top of it. It's a pretty basic setup on top, and then below it is in my eyes very useful. And then the I'm gonna say foam pit. The foam pit that we have, or foam
Just
pit
say pit.
alternative.
The pit.
The pit.
The pit.
The foam pit.
It's not foam.
There might be foam like lining it. Is in the ground, and that I feel like is better because what I always liked about foam pits was that they simulated like gaps, and that you would really want to do in real life, but you would never do because the consequence is so high. So we had the ledge run in our current pit where you'd run along the wall, and our current pit was 20 feet wide, and so simulating stuff like that is tough on the ground because you need that little bit of height, and you need to be able to fall and not fall on concrete or rubber mats. So that's what I really liked about foam pits in terms of parkour, is that there's something to jump over that if you fell, it wasn't a big consequence. So,
and now we have that.
Yeah, we actually have it a lot better this time around because it has having it on the ground. There's just something special about, in my eyes, the ceiling being 30 feet above the pit now, and I'm very excited about that, as opposed to what we have right now, where the top of our foam pit was only 10 feet up to the ceiling, so you couldn't swing on it. That was a feature that we're adding.
It's been a while since we've done a ceiling drop.
Yep.
So it'll be nice to do a ceiling drop in this location.
Yeah.
Travis is not excited.
Travis is not excited. Hey, you need to do the exterior jump with us?
Yeah.
But yeah,
I'll do the ceiling drop too. That I just
from the lower side.
Huh?
Oh no, we can't do it.
No, you gotta do it over the pit.
We gotta drive the mat out from the garage door.
The only option is over the pit. You have to climb up Jesse's 20-foot freaking
bar.
Star Wars antennas.
Yes.
To get up there, but yeah, that probably won't be a feature that I would let
anyone do.
Yes. That's really more what I'm worried about. Is somebody coming in and be like, "I want to do the drop." I'm like, there's not a waiver for that. Sorry.
No.
Yeah.
Yes. There's a separate waiver once you get past that viewing mezzanine.
Yeah. But the facility, I'm really excited to actually get started on the facility.
Yeah.
It feels like a lot. I mean, we have, for those of you that are in Fort Collins and kind of have driven by the location before you've seen like the walls go up, and we have siding up now on the building. For those of you that don't live in Fort Collins, it's a giant steel skeleton with siding on it now, which is really cool because so much of this project has been on paper and not in reality, and in meetings and up in the air and this ethereal thing. And so now seeing it come together and actually be a physical location is super exciting, especially in a time where a lot of other businesses are struggling, right? And not to say that we don't have our own challenges as a business, but it's really cool to still be moving forward in this time and to be pushing for something that we've had on our dream bucket for so long, while other businesses are struggling. So
it's also not been particularly popular in the parkour industry to be focused on business, and I think that this is just a sort of example of like why that still matters, right? Because we took a hit just like everybody else, and so that was not great. But because our focus is also on being like awesome at business, we will be able to make it through this and actually still deliver something that's of value to people. When if business was a passive part of Outrun, then I don't know. I mean, yeah, it seems very scary. Even if we were where we were 2 years ago and this would have happened, I think we'd have been in a lot of trouble. But we worked really hard on.
Well, and we had a conversation early on too, when and I guess it would be April, right, when we knew that like the lockdown and everything was going to be a lot longer than people had initially suspected, as to whether or not we were going to continue pushing with this project. We were like, well, things are a little bit risky, and I think we all knew that if we didn't, it wouldn't just be like a 6 month or a 1 year setback, right? With the way that Fort Collins real estate is, as a property owner, I don't like, even though it does benefit me. A lot of people struggle with Fort Collins real estate. I think there's some legislation that needs to be adjusted. But we knew that like this was the last plot of dirt in Fort Collins proper that could support a project like this. And if we didn't push forward, we were going to have to compromise down the road by buying a location that was already built and custom building like we normally do, as opposed to being able to build ground up in design like we have with this one. And I think we made the right choice, but that was still a very hard conversation, right? Like that was...
Yeah, I think it's also courageous because the inclination when things tighten down like that is to sort of withdraw and go backwards. And I think we just decided to work harder.
And I don't think, and I don't think that that's for any business or business owner that maybe is listening, that's not, being conservative with your business, not wanting to take a risk is an okay thing. Like if that supports your livelihood, you got to do what you got to do to keep paying your bills. But the nature of business is growth. And if you're not like, I'm going to take a step back so that I have a running jump here rather than just to start walking again, right? If you're going to take a step back as a business, you have to be like, okay, I'm going to take this step back so that I have an added run up so that when it comes time, I'm leaping, not running like I used to, right?
Yeah,
that
you're
needs
charging
to,
up, not
that
on your
needs to
heels.
be your approach. And I feel like when we had that conversation, we were like, we're already running. We've been running for a long time. It's like, it's time that we do a little bit of a jump now. Because we've always, in every location, we've been like, let's do this. And then we're like, no, let's take a step back. Let's make it, it's better for this purpose so that later on we'll have a little bit of a springboard. So.
Yeah. I also think it would be very tough as an individual individual owner to find the motivation. I think at times you just got moments of weakness as an individual.
Yeah.
I think it takes a very great, just another level of entrepreneurship to be able to do that by yourself. So, and I think those people are the people who are making these mega corps.
Corpos.
These corpos.
No, it's
right.
so
So
true.
I do see it though, those individual owners. Like I just have
mad
a
respect.
certain empathy for and respect for, because it's just doing it without you two guys. It'd be a different story in my opinion. For me.
Yeah, we are definitely more of a team. I don't really have seen, and we've kind of been like that. I think there's not really ever been one person who is, the star of the whole deal. Like it's just, we've always seen more of a community. And I just think like individuals can really inspire. I really think that individuals can really inspire, but it takes a village to raise the community. You know what I mean? It takes a team to really impact lasting change and legacy in my opinion, because that's just how it gets actualized, right? If you imagine one individual who's just killing it, right? And they just do an awesome thing, like they can sort of set a vision and they can drive like that, but you don't really realize the change across a broader spectrum unless you have a team of people operating that way. Like everybody's like, I got one person doing whatever he thinks should be done. Well, that's fine. How many people do you have doing part of that, right? Or half of that, or a quarter of that? I think that's something that we're pretty good at. And we have a solid foundation for a really good team as well too.
We do, and I think there's all been moments for sure where one of us or two of us, or even sometimes all three of us, have not agreed, right?
Yeah.
Sometimes vehemently, sometimes just passively, but it's very nice to know that if I wake up one day and I'm not in the work mood or the passionate mood, that I can lean on you two to supply some of that energy for me, right? Like a vampire, just like I'm just gonna borrow some of your inspiration, right?
Yeah, it does help
to keep pushing through. And yeah, if as a single owner, that would be very difficult to muster up that courage. In fact, the only thing that would muster is that I have to pay my bills, so I'm just gonna have to grind through. But that's not a happy way to think about things, right?
Yeah.
Like there's like I want to do this because I'm excited and it'll pay my bills, right? And that's a happy way to to do work. And then there's the sad way, which is like I just have to do this, and I never want to be in that position with this business. So it's nice to have you too. Do you guys remember that like death hike that Carly and I did like 3 years ago?
You mean your engagement hike, or?
Yeah.
No, it was before that.
setting
It
up.
was the reason that we went back for that.
Okay, like this. So you have to frame this up a little bit.
So I think this is
Noku Craig's, right? Or this is...
Yeah, this is the Craig's. This is maybe 4 years back. So Carly had booked like a yurt up in the mountains for my birthday. My birthday is in November, so it's not typically like crazy snowy on like in the Front Range, but in the mountains there's definitely a lot of snow.
Noku Craig's is the scene from Lord of the Rings.
It is, yeah.
Like
it's
not
like a spired mountain. Like, yeah, it's super cool to go up. But anyway, so like the yurt itself is 3 miles up off of like the highway. So you have to park on the side of the highway and you have to hike up to the yurt, right? And this is the first time we've ever been there. And so we booked the date for my birthday weekend. And we drive up there. We had a bit of a late start getting up there for whatever reason, but we got there and there's a massive snowstorm blowing in like that night. We get up there, we can't find the trailhead because the storm's like all over the place, right? So we like pull into the ranger hat and we're like asking like, where's the trailhead for this? We got to get up there. Like the sun's starting to set. Like we got to get up there quick, right? Ranger's like, oh, it's over here. You guys passed it. You got to drive back. But when you start the hike, it's going to be dark. So, like, you guys have to make a choice. We were like, well, we're not going to gamble with it. Let's just get a hotel room. We'll just hike up because we got it for 2 nights. We'll just hike up in the morning. All the hotels in the region are booked. And the highway itself has now closed. So we can't even drive back home to Fort Collins or go forward to the next town. The section of road that we're in is literally just closed. Right? This one's closed. This one's closed.
This
so
is
we're like,
Colorado problems. This is real. Like,
and so we're like, okay, maybe we sleep in the car, which for a lot of people that don't live in snowy weather, that's actually really risky to sleep in your car. A lot of people actually, we get probably somebody once a year in Colorado that dies from sleeping in their car because they're like, oh, it'll be warm. And cars get super cold and then you freeze to death and die in your car while sleeping. We had sleeping bags and stuff. But we're like, all right, you know what? No, we're just gonna have to hike it. We're just gonna have to go up there. And the entire hike up, it's pitch black. We have 1 lantern with 4 AA batteries in it because I'm an idiot and I didn't pack extra flashlights. So we have 1 lantern. We're hiking up there with like snowshoes and all of our gear.
Not
like,
even a headlamp, like a lantern, like
nope, like legit like a lantern, like a
like
battery
Scrooge,
little lantern,
like Scrooge
yep.
McDuck or whatever in the
Yep.
Christmas special.
Yeah, and the reason that I did that is because we were going to be in the yurt. Was my plan at night. So it's, normally you pack like camping, you pack like a ton of flashlights because you don't have any actual structures.
Yeah.
And there was going to be like a big fire pit and all that stuff to provide light. So yeah, bad planning on my part. But anyway, so we're hiking up. It's pitch black by the time we find the trailhead, and we're getting up there, and it's in the middle of a snowstorm. We have snowshoes on. I have like 2 backpacks on, and I'm carrying like my sleeping bag, and it's like dry bag on the side, and Carly's got her bag. We're hiking up there, but the entire time we're hiking up, I'm like, maybe we should go back to the car. And she's like, no, we already dedicated. Let's do this.
Wow, she pushed that.
30 minutes later,
Jesse says
she's
maybe
like,
we should go back.
She's like, actually, maybe you're right. We should go back. And I'm like, no. We chose this. We're like, at this point, we're probably halfway up the trail. There's no way to tell distance. You can only see 10 feet ahead where the lantern's light goes. And so I'm like, no, let's just keep going. Like, we know we're on the trail. We'll run into the yurt. The ranger says the trail ends at the yurt. So you can't miss the yurt.
Unless you get off the trail, which is covered with snow.
Yeah. And at this point, yeah, the snow's like this deep, right? Like
Several
from
feet.
pack. Mm-hmm. And so we have snowshoes, so we're on the top of the snow, so we're not like trudging through knee-deep snow or anything like that. But it oscillates the entire time, where we're both like, she's like, maybe we should go back, and I'm like, no, let's just keep going. And then 30 minutes later, I'm like, maybe we should go back, and she's like, no, we got to keep going. Eventually, we make it to the yurt, like cold and tired and sweaty and gross, and we just like light the fire and pass out after cooking some bacon and like downing a lot of moonshine. To celebrate our survival. But that, long story short, that's a lot how I view like the business relationship sometimes, right? Is that like it doesn't matter in reality if you go back to the car and sleep in a sleeping bag. You won't die, you'll survive, you'll find another way to life. But you can, with the right team, encourage each other when the other person's weak to keep going, to finally make it to that destination. And a lot of the times that can feel like a business partnership. It's like, nah, man, maybe we shouldn't do this thing, I'm worried about what's happening with this. This is a big project, and I feel like, we might be over leveraging in the middle of a pandemic. And then other people are like, no, we've been pushing for this, we've been planning, nothing's changed on the back end, right? And that's always been heartening to both have that in my marriage and in my professional relationships. So
this was definitely a no, we cannot turn back kind of moment. I feel like, for sure. It's because we knew that we had to start looking for another location in the middle of this lease, which was 2.5 years ago, right? And really 3 years ago, I think the conversation was like, all right, let's get moving. And so it just felt like, when April and March turned around, it was just like, there's no way. We've already spent, it felt like 2 years trying to get this project. We had already failed twice or something like that on purchasing the property. So this one we knew had a very good chance of making it through, because we have a team that Outrun Timberline, the Timberline project guys. We knew that this one had a really good chance. And so if we let this one go, it was just back to another 5-year lease.
In a place that's not ideal for us.
Want to be in, yeah. And so there was we weren't going to give up on this one. This one smelled special, especially because we just changed the name to Outrun, and we can't have a failure on Outrun's first year. Like Outrun had to start off on this foot, and so
And I know it was part of the reason we changed the name when we did. Was because we knew we had this project coming, and it was going to add a lot of momentum to the brand. And that would be bad news bears.
Yeah. And we're still up there.
It's still it's not over yet. We're definitely there. In the
we're trudging.
We think we know where the year it is.
Yes.
But that's crazy. I agree. I think that when you have a team that, I think this is a lot of parkour seems to be about becoming stronger. There's a degree of that. I was recently rereading Julie Angel's book, because we were talking about it last week around the history of parkour, and just there's a lot of we do try to create movement inspiration for people, and we try to make it a pleasant and homey experience, but on the back end of that, as business owners and people on our own journeys, there's hardship to be endured, there's risk to be taken. You have to have guts to do a lot of what we're doing. And you're in the fight, you know what I mean? You're in the fray. And so I like it when on the front end, people are just things seem to be going okay. And on the back end, you're just slaying, right? Or you're really slaying these dragons. And it's sort of just I don't think it's a facade. I think that's inappropriate.
In the backyard, you're slaying dragons, and you come in, you wash up, and you greet people at the front door in your pajamas, that kind of thing.
Have some tea, right? Come have a cup of breve. That sort of thing. I think I take pride in that. I take pride personally in, slaying sort of metaphorical dragons on the business back end. On the front end, people just see a bunch of kids and people having a good time. I think that takes strength. If it bleeds into everything, I wouldn't judge that, but it's just hey, that makes me feel good, right?
Yeah.
Being able to do that, and definitely having a team matters to get that done. Otherwise, single person, you can do it. You just go insane. I've had solo projects before, and it just becomes every moment of doubt that you have, or a mistake that you have, goes unchecked, and you just, right? It's the lone wolf life. It's very tough.
Yeah.
Not easy. So hey, thanks for being around, guys.
Yeah. I definitely feel that gratitude. I mean, sometimes it's just a whim of whatever, and you just feel weak one day, and then you look over and someone else is getting a new member, or working really hard on a program, or doing something, and you see some progress, and you're like, okay, cool. Well, I guess someone else has energy, and I feel like that may be what you want to look for if you guys are out there looking for business partners and stuff. You want to look for people who are strong, who can stand on their own. They don't need to, and then when you start compounding that, that's a good thing to look for.
Hard thing to look for.
A hard thing to find, right? Yeah.
Yeah, easy thing to look for, hard thing to find.
Yeah, could both be hard. I've made mistakes before in those selections, but yeah, this one was good. But a lot of that came from when I was looking at you guys when we were starting. I was looking at, because you guys are pretty young. How old are you guys when we started?
When we started doing parkour, or started the business?
Started the business.
We started
I was
coaching.
19?
I was 19 or 20 when we started coaching.
20, but then when we were
No, we
partners,
started. Yeah, we started the business at 19. You and I. And when we brought Travis on, I was 20. Yeah. I was 19 because we brought you on just before I met Carly. I met Carly when I was 20. I just turned 20.
Oh yeah, because I can remember you meeting her.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I was 19.
19, 20. So
This guy got in the business about 19-year-old.
Yeah, well, you guys are like, oh, he brought you on. Like, you think a 30-year-old wasn't looking hard? Yeah. So, no, I mean, yeah, I was.
Yeah, and we had, right? I think did we sign the lease, but right before Travis, or did we sign?
We're getting ready to. So I remember you guys asking. We were asking for advice, and then it was your lease signing that compelled me to try and buy into the company. And because I remember we were in a car, and Jesse was like, "Should I just pay the full lease up front?" And I was like, "No, probably shouldn't."
It was so cheap
It was cheap, but that's why I remember this situation. I don't even know if that would have been a good or a bad decision. I mean, depending on what you're trying to do with your financials, it may have been a good decision. I'm just saying that's the conversation I remember, which leads me to believe, okay, we hadn't gotten in on that, because when we actually signed and went in on the lease in that location, that's when I came on.
Yeah.
Because I remember that, and then wanting to be involved in that first build was another reason that I really wanted to get in on Loveland.
Yeah, that was a pretty good time. I think that rent was $1,700.
It was $1,700.
$1,700 for I was pretty close to what we had here. It was well, not really. It was like 2.5, right?
I think it was $2,800 was the official.
Yeah.
Insane. That's like a 2-bedroom apartment right now.
Yeah, yes, the Fort Collins real estate scene has changed much change. But when I was looking for you guys, the ability to already like do something matters so much. Like, you guys had already done something. You had a membership base. You'd shown that you could work, that you could show up and operate independently. Again, it's that can stand on your own 2 feet thing. And you were at that point.
Our own 4 feet.
Your own 4 feet, right? Exactly. And that had been my experience, is that people who can like stand and do stuff on their own, you can definitely leverage relationships in a business to get people to fill like weaknesses. It just so happened that the chemistry worked out really well for our different strengths, and that's just luck, in my opinion. Straight up luck.
There's quite a bit of luck in that.
Yeah.
In terms of just like timing and.
But everybody had stuff to bring to the table. You know, whether it was experience and ambition and history and clout and effort, and everybody had really, for our respective ages and arenas, had very good resumes for coming together on stuff. And so that's what, and I think also uniquely, we had that relationship with Apex, and that's where our lineage is drawn. Mm-hmm. Absolutely. But we were fiercely independent, always problematically independent in some ways, right?
Yeah. Fiercely
wanting to reinvent the wheel. And I think that comes from a strong sense of ownership, which I think that people need to have with themselves and what they do. Like, this is my work, I'm going to do it, and I'm going to kill it, and I do it because of the nature of the work. And that's hard to find as well. I mean, I still teach. I still, I don't think that's mandatory. I still teach classes and work with kids and adults, and that's just part of the work, and I don't lose from that, right? So
sometimes it's nice to like do those simple things again and be like, this class has very little consequence.
Right.
This is a project I can do that I can just have fun with.
Uh-huh.
And there's not a lot of consequence on this one. That is nice.
Super true. I observe that when I'm mowing my lawn.
Do you guys have any pictures of? Your patch.
Yes, my small, which was designed to be easy to. Yeah, just it's about that. You could do like maybe a little like tricking line in it, a little style line out there.
Man.
Go ahead.
Do you guys have a picture? I'm sure I do somewhere of the OG Loveland Gym.
Oh, of course. There's a bunch on my Facebook keep showing up, and I can.
Like just a singular picture.
Of the inside?
It'd be nice to contrast them, yeah. I know I have clips and stuff, and I think I have a picture somewhere, but we should find that.
And compare.
And then when we do, the Timberline location, we can.
Mm-hmm.
It'd be cool to have like a time lapse of all our builds too, but yeah, hindsight.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I have images of it for sure, and video. So
we'll maybe
show the
with
transformation.
your guys' permission. So, are we doing any more leaks of the
We
build?
are, yeah. I think we're gonna drip some more imagery and some mock-ups. We're making them really dark, so you can't quite figure out what's gonna be there.
What if they turn the brightness up?
They would get a little better idea.
But Travis already posted a dated clip, so if you saw something in there that don't get too.
That's true. Yeah,
pictures.
nothing is built yet. So
Yeah.
like what you see in the pictures are just the renderings, and they have not been official.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, the style is what we're trying to
That's-
get you excited about, and the shapes. Some of the shapes are still in there.
they just
Huh.
just their angles or positions may change a bit.
Yeah,
That's true.
yeah.
Well, stay tuned for that.
Yeah.
guys. And thanks for listening to us talk a little bit about our history and our design and our excitement on this new project. And thanks for being a part of it. And for those of you that are watching us, you can listen to us on any of your major podcast platforms. Those of you that are listening to us, you can watch us, and you can watch Travis rub the Outrun banner earlier in the episode. Give it a rub. Louder. So that's
ASMR.
Yeah, get a little ASMR in there. Yeah, you guys can see that. You can see all this hot vampire banner action on the YouTube. Thanks for tuning in, everybody. We'll catch you next time.
He's so white.
So white.